So thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. So
Well,
that's really great. We've been on your website and also on Adventure Lab, and we must say we are very impressed. And
thank you.
it sounds really, really interesting. And both Sheila and I, we actually have a background in MMD as well.
Oh,
Yeah, so we read you were like one of the first persons in Denmark to take the education, right?
um, the the Space Invader thing. You
Yeah,
talking about that?
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. We
absolutely.
were intrigued by that.
Yeah, I was on crew too. It was back at the time where you could fit everybody who worked with. It was called interactive multimedia at the time. You could take everybody and fit them into a small cinema, actually.
Wow,
Okay.
those must have been the times.
Well, it was pretty interesting, and it was one of the things that was really interesting was the collaboration between people. I mean, we could work at different agencies and companies, and one would have a problem and just reach out to someone else at another agency, another company, and say, "Heck, how do you fix this?" And people would help each other out, and I think that was a big part of the pioneering spirit that people didn't hold their cards,
Yeah.
and
Too
so
close as we do today, as we have to do today, perhaps.
absolutely, absolutely. Um, but
Great.
but yeah, it was it's great. But I think the point is that right now we're in a very interesting point of time, um, where we have sort of the same pioneering spirit. I mean, it's you have a lot of old advertising agency guys who moans about what's going on, but they don't realize that this is a world of opportunities right now. So many opportunities of doing stuff in a new way.
That sounds really good. Because well, yeah, we are taking this education called e-concept development. It's a top up on top of our MMD degree,
Yeah,
which is an AP degree. And a lot of people are quite negative, I must say, in the industry. Oh, there are too many of you, and Denmark doesn't really need you. But still, I think when you look on the internet, you can still see so many things that could be done in a better way. So,
absolutely,
right? Yeah.
absolutely. We're only at the beginning of things. And right now, as people, and I mean, I've been doing this for 20 years, and one of the things you find out is that things keep evolving. And many people have this need to pin down and say, this is how it is. But I tell you what, 2 years, 3 years after, things have changed. I mean, nobody would have imagined the level of multitasking and multi-screening and the value of contextuality as much as it now really is being done and used by people, right? I primarily work in uh, strategic experience design and concepts. Now, what that means is that there's some creative work to it, but it's usually focusing on what is the relevant experiences and what experiences do we need to change and add to actually achieve some measurable goals, some tangible benefits. So it's not just creative hot shopping and coming up with a new funky gizmo gadget thing. It really has to dive into how we can make a change, and that change can be sales, visitors, um, customer satisfaction, employee satisfaction, and so on. And often it involves digital media because digital media is simply omnipresent, right? So, and given the background I have in digital media, my approach to experience design is the approach of an interaction designer. This is going back and forth. So, working with various kinds of companies, and I tell you, it's you would find it curious, the kind of companies that actually see an idea and finding out what is the right authentic experiences for them to work with. I mean, I've worked with, obviously, with museums and attractions, destinations, but also with garbage companies and people who make small things for farms and what have you. So that's really the approach to it. Also, I'm very involved with the Entertainment Association,
Yeah.
which is the largest network for creators of compelling spaces in the world. And the level of experience, design, and expertise that there is just very much, it's about 1,000 companies. Among those companies, as our members, we have Walt Disney Imagineering, Universal Creative, Pixar, BRC, Imagination Arts, and so on and so on. So, and the reason for working so much with that is when you work with experiences like this, you cannot cave in on yourself. You need to be able to network. You need to have a vast, extensive network that can do what you can come up with. And also, at the same time, I have a personal passion for raising the bar of what this industry should do and the quality of work that we deliver. Over 100 years ago, some German scientists put down what we remember. And if we're talking about advertising, we're always talking about recall, recall, recall.
Yeah.
And it's just a vast difference in how much we remember compared, if we compare what people tell us, if we see things with images, or if we experience them ourselves, right?
Yes.
Because we also have something called physical memory, which is some things that communication trained people often seem to forget.
Many years ago, it was enough to go in and buy a cup of coffee, and that's what you got. But today it's not enough anymore. And why why do we as humans we've evolved in this way? Or can you try and dig a little bit into that?
Absolutely. The thing about how and why we have evolved from drinking a cup of coffee and moving on, and why a mall full of shops selling stuff is not enough, is because we're not just functional beings. Um, one of the the most suicidal thing a shopping mall can do is to ignore the fact that they need balloon clowns, they need dwelling spaces, they need all that. And the reason for that is if you do something that is purely functional, then people will go in, fulfill their function, and leave again. And less time spent in any location is means less coin spent. And then you take then you really have the economy part of the experience economy. And I think it's obviously there's a chance of some sort of inflation in experiences. Everything should be a big experience, and so on and so on. And I think that's where really the relevance part comes in. When do you do something that actually adds to what you want to achieve? And when do you become intrusive with your experiences? I really don't like, when you bring up things like the small experiences, because psychologically, um, we we mold our opinion about something from all the small experiences. It's like you can work with someone and they can do a really huge error, but everybody can do an error. It's really a question about how they tackle that, how they face that they actually did an error. Um, or you can work with someone where it's just the little things again and again and again and again that's wrong, and that eventually will form our opinion of that company and that person.
Yes.
So the little things really, really matter because it's hard for us to pick them out. They just become a mass of things that, which becomes the perspective that we see that makes up our own opinion. I'll tell you what, someone like Disney works with this in a very concise way. Um, they have what they call magic moments. And this is an idea any company can pick up on. Magic moments are not big events, but those little magic moments. And what that is that everybody that works in the park among the visitors are very observative of little things. And then they put into system how to better those little things. Let me give you an example. The sweepers will be aware if you have a family that wants to see a parade, and you may hate parades or not, but certainly the Americans love them. And you have that family, and the little kid cannot see anything, then the sweeper will move in and tell them to relocate to a small hill or another place, and so they can see something. Very small things that are not the big, memorable moments, but are those that get embedded in our minds still. Now we have a lot of concept stores or concept store ideas coming up. Many of those become really, only form, no content. And one of the reasons for that is that people do not instruct their people or allow their people the freedom to actually act within what the concept is of the concept store. Because I tell you what, if you have the right person, you can give that person a cardboard box and a marker, and he will do a great pop-up store for you. Let me give you a great example of a concept store that works. Okay. In Aarhus, then the oldest fish store in Denmark is called Clausen's Fish Store or something like that. And the thing about that is that even though you don't like fish, you want to go in there. Okay. Because everybody who works in there, the way that they lay out, the cash of the day, all that is just, it's a very authentic experience. It is born, it has become a concept store over the 100+ years it has existed. And the thing is, you really get that, you really feel that energy, you feel that empowerment. Like at one point, a swordfish was part of the catch of the day. So they put up the swordfish on the wall and said, "This is a swordfish. It can swim 100 kilometers an hour. Well, not this one because it's dead." But that that kind of approach to it. Of constructed concept stores, look at something like, you may like it or may not like it, but one cannot take away from the success of Nespresso. Yeah. And the stores, are really reliving the elegance of the advertising. Yeah. And the whole idea of why you should pay so much for a coffee machine, basically, right? Yeah. So that's also something. I think the thing with the concept stores is that it becomes the experience of the brand. So when it goes wrong, it's not the experience of the brand. It's just what some designers and some creatives or someone else thinks could be fun to do. And then you force your team members, your shop employees to be out of place. I think when working in the Danish market specifically, and this is really, no matter where you're working and Denmark or anything else, you need to understand the culture, or you need someone on the team who understands that culture. And I think especially when you're working in Denmark, you even need to break it down further. It's because working in Copenhagen is one thing, working in southern Denmark is another thing. Mm-hmm. So you want to find that balance where people are intrigued, they want to be engaged, they want to be immersed, but without it becoming too phony. Yes. Because something that we as Danes quickly tend to push away from us is phoniness. And I think that's That's very important, that you need to sort of culturally translate the findings you get. And that goes for everything. Also with the digital, there's a big tendency that people look at the U.S. statistics and then they think they just apply to anywhere in the world. So you need to dive down and find out what is the balance actually. What can gain success in a certain area. And then especially if you work in Copenhagen, you need to see beyond and understand that most people in Denmark do not live in Copenhagen or Aalborg or Aarhus or Odense. They live in smaller cities.
Yes.
So do you want to, pinpoint something for them there? Do you want to work with shopping centers that they have access to, or do you want to build something that will make people come into one of those big cities? I think the approach to it is really, when you talk about experiences, if you talk about experiential marketing, experience economy, experience design, and so on, sometimes people think of it as IT, that's one thing. But really, many people see it as synonymous with that event. That one thing, that event. And the biggest challenge is really to understand that experience in economy needs to reflect or influence the DNA of the organization. What that means also is that the organization needs to support it. It needs to become an everyday thing. And I think many have this sort of campaign-like or event-like approach to it. Then we'll do this for 3 weeks or 3 months, and then the world will change. They do not understand that no, it is a change that you have to, sustain, you have to operate, you have to keep it moving. Really, your world starts after the launch, and not on the day when you're done with the creative.